KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan. This is Radio Orbit. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
You don't believe in what you do. You don't believe in being cool. You don't believe you can be cruel. You don't believe that they can fool you. Don't believe the words I say when I say them to you. Do you? Do you? You just don't see my point of view. You just don't see that I see through you. You just don't see the ones who knew you. Just don't see the way they use you. Just don't see the things I say when I say them to you. Do you? Do you?
Good evening to everybody out there. Welcome to the program. My name is Mike Hagan. This is Radio Orbit. And whoever you are, wherever you might be, whenever you might be listening to this program, welcome. It's Radio Orbit, Monday, the 5th of November, 2018. As always, a big thank you to everybody setting things up for us on Mondays. Woody Atkins gets things going every Monday, 3 to 5 p.m. with the Real Deal Country Show. And following that, we have Left Ahead Radio, talking politics, and interesting show tonight, obviously concerned with the elections tomorrow. But hey, before I go further, Woody Atkins and the Real Deal Country Show, which was on today from 3 to 5 and is every Monday, he plays traditional country music, classical style country music, Ameripolitan music, Western swing. Anyway, he has a great program, and he's actually been nominated as for DJ of the Year at the Ameripolitan Music Awards, which I think the actual award ceremony is sometime toward the beginning of 2019. But you can vote between now and say, December, January, something like that. But anyway, our own Woody Atkins, the host of the Real Deal Country Show, who's a fantastic guy and also does a great radio show and has really turned me on to some great country music over the last few years. Anyway, he's been nominated for the Ameripolitan Music Awards DJ of the Year. So I would suggest that everybody out there, if you enjoy that style of music and if you've ever listened to Woody's show, please go over to Ameripolitan.com. And it's very obvious there how to vote, and you'll see it right there on the front page and big old banner. It says vote, and it's really easy to click on that and give a vote to Columbia's own Woody Atkins. And if you are not familiar with Woody or the Real Deal Country Show, you should check it out. From 3 to 5 p.m. every Monday. And of course, you can you can listen to these programs on the web streaming after the fact for at least 2 weeks. Some of the hosts here at KOPN sort of do their own thing and make their programs available further after the fact, but all the shows are available on a website that's called Radio Free America. And if you go to Radio Free America and search for KOPN, you can just pretty much go to the calendar, and when any particular day that you were trying to listen to something, you can go to that day, and for 2 weeks after the fact, you'll be able to listen to the archived program. So for Woody's show, you can do that as well. And he just had a program this afternoon that was great. And so if you're not familiar with that music, and if you don't like it, and I wasn't a very big country fan for years. I'm 54 years old, and I didn't really get into country music until the last few years. And I will add the caveat that it's not country music that you're going to hear on, 98.9, new country. It's going to be something old, traditional, or somebody new who is trying to respect and interpret that old style. And I've really come to enjoy some of the old artists and some of the new ones that Woody's introduced me and many other people to. So anyway, Woody Atkins for the Ameripolitan Music Awards DJ of the Year. Go there and vote for Woody, okay? Anyway, so before that, like I said, Left Ahead Radio, always talking interesting stuff in the political realm. We have the tech radio guys before that, keeping us up to snuff on the remarkable fast-moving world of technology. And, of course, Jazz plus Blues, Kevin's show. I never say what it really equals. It's jazz plus blues equals soul. But for me, it's jazz plus blues equals open phone lines tonight. And New Wave Radio Theater, just sort of finishing up just a bit ago. Anyway, KOPN, Mondays. Good music, good talk, good news. And you're listening to it, all right? 89.5 on the dial. And streaming on the web at kopn.org. All right, last time I was with you, we had Dr. Michael Hyson, and we talked about dolphins and whales and about how damn smart they are and remarkably intelligent they are, and the attempt of humans and perhaps dolphins and whales to try to bridge the language communication gap between the species. And as crazy as that sounds, there's a lot of progress that's been made beginning 50, 60 years ago with Dr. John Lilly, and continuing to this day with people like Michael Hyson. And I'm thrilled to have been able to present him and his material to the audience, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I will say this, and I don't normally do this, but Michael Hyson lives in Puna, Hawaii, and the volcanic activity over the last almost the whole year, and of course, things don't stay in the news for long. They kind of come and go. But if you remember, a few months ago, it was big news that there was a lot of lava flow and volcanic activity in Hawaii. Well, Michael Hyson lives right there, and he had to leave his home, and he lost a lot of things, and he's essentially been living, through the charity of friends and public services, for many months now. And he's not a young man, and he's, he doesn't have a lot of money. And anyway, his email address is Michael Hyson at yahoo.com. And if you send him an email and ask for that presentation that he was that he was talking about last couple weeks ago. He did a really interesting presentation that was filmed, and it's not available on the internet or anywhere else. And he'll make it available, and he'll share it with you, for a small donation. I'm sure you could even just send him a note and say hi, and he'd be glad to talk with you, or just whatever. But anyway, Michael Hyson at yahoo.com. If you got anything in your heart or your wallet that you might want to help him. He's been through a difficult time here for the last year or so, and anyway, still trying to continue his work with the dolphins and whales, which he has been just a remarkable influence in that community and the forward movement of that whole particular area of science for many, many years. And when he's no longer with us, he will be remembered for sure. So anyway, kudos and thanks to Dr. Michael Hyson for coming on the program a couple weeks ago. We'll get him back for sure sometime in the future. All right. If you missed that show, you can listen online anytime, like I've said before, but you can go to the archives at my website, and that's www.mikehagan, MikeHagan, MikeHagan.com, and everything is there. The shows that I've done over the last few months here, and then many, many shows that I did years and years ago. So if you'd like to check any of that out, like I said, MikeHagan.com, just go to the archives, and you can listen to anything you like there. Okay. Also, if you weren't able to hear the show last week, we had a great talk with Dr. Hyson, but you also missed a bunch of great music from a gentleman named Andrew Ryan. And Andrew is a St. Louis-based artist, and his record Across Currents is really good. And we played a bunch of tracks from it last week, and I'm looking forward to getting to see Andrew here in Columbia sometime. I wish maybe I should make an effort and go down there to Berlin or talk to the guys at Rose or whatever. But if you're listening out there, Andrew Ryan, he's a St. Louis guy, but certainly no reason why we shouldn't be able to see him here in Columbia. Maybe we'll get him on Open Mic Radio on Friday mornings. That's a nice plug for the show that I do on Friday mornings, which I might as well mention. I try to get, I don't try, but I do. I get local regional musicians and bring them here into the studio, and very often they play songs for us, and we talk about their life and background and music and the local scene and all that stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And I would love to have some of the St. Louis guys come down here to the station if they happen to be around this neck of the woods, Anyway, Andrew Ryan, great new music coming from St. Louis, and on the web at andrewryan.net, and also in my music archives. Again, if you go to my site at mikehagan.com, you just click on the music archives, and you can listen to Andrew Ryan. All right. Okay. Today's program, open phone lines. You and me and whoever's out there, let's connect up, and you guys can call in here and talk to me about whatever. I got a few surprises during the course of the show, but nothing special. We don't actually have a specific guest tonight. You're the guests of the program tonight. Of course, we'll do space weather. We'll look at the news, but yeah, open phones all night tonight. So let's see if we can get some of you involved in the program, so I don't have to do it all by myself, okay? All right, that number, by the way, is 573-443-8255. 573-443-8255. It's 11:15, so that's when I gave the number out for the first time, 573-443-8255. I'll be with you until 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, so we got 2 hours and 45 minutes to come up with something to talk about, all right? Yeah. I'd love it if you called in, all right? What do you want to call about? Anything, really, okay? Pretty much anything. I'm sort of interested in lots of things and personal experience. You know, maybe you had something really weird happen, or maybe something fun, or maybe you just want to talk to somebody, or maybe you have a question that you like to ask me, or maybe you have a suggestion for a future guest, or maybe you have some advice for me that I may or may not want. I don't have a screener, so, you know, if you call, I will answer the phone and do my best to address whatever it is that you bring up, okay? So once again, and I love doing it, so I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it, okay? 573-443-8255. Anything goes tonight. If you'd like to call and become a part of the program, I really don't care when you do. I'll start doing it right now, and as we go through the program, I've got plenty of things to fill in, but I'd love it if you guys join me tonight and give me a few phone calls, and we can chat on the air and see what's happening out there in Columbia and everywhere else in mid-Missouri. You know, we got 40,000 watts blasting here, and we're reaching a lot of different places in Missouri. We got Boonville, we got Rocheport, New Franklin, New Florence, Old Franklin, I guess probably too. If you got New Franklin, you probably got Old Franklin, Holt Summit, High Hill, lots of places. Sturgeon. And so wherever you are, if you're getting this signal, including on the web, you know, everybody has a cell phone now. So to make a long distance call like we used to call, there's really no such thing anymore for people that are using, cellular technology. I guess if you have a landline, you still have the sort of long distance service. Do you? I mean, I'd love that. Does anybody out there still have a landline? Call me, and I'd love to know what it costs to still have a landline, and if you have to pay for long distance service and that, or if they kind of do like the full package thing like they do with cellular service now. You know, you pretty much call anywhere, except I guess there's international programs as well. But as far as national calls, no problem anywhere, right? Anyway, so 573-443-8255 from pretty much anywhere in the country if you got a cellular telephone, and if you have a landline, you know, and you're somewhere around here, it's not going to cost you too much. You know, give me a call, and I'd love to hear from you as well. Okay. All right. Also, for music tonight, we're back to St. Louis, as we were last program, and I'll be featuring the music tonight of the Rum Drum Ramblers, and I'll tell you some more about the Rum Drum Ramblers as we get in the program here, but I think it's better to listen to some of their music, and we're going to do it here. This is a song from their record Mean Scene, which was released, I guess it was in 2012. It's been a little bit since they've released any new music, but there are reasons for that, and they're all extremely active in the music scene, not just in St. Louis, but really around the world now. And that's probably why the Rum Drum Ramblers haven't released anything recorded in quite some time, because they're also busy with other projects, including Pokey Lafarge, who was here just this last weekend, Saturday night at the Blue Note. Fantastic show. So anyway, here's one from the Rum Drum Ramblers. We'll be hearing music tonight from their record called Mean Scene, and this one is called Jack and Tom. All right, it's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. Once again, the Rum Drum Ramblers. This is Jack and Tom.
Same old tricks again. There goes Jack. Oh no. Ooh, stop the same old tricks again. Ran across two bass tomboy. You know they were fast friends. I'll tell you. I borrowed a Lincoln. I don't think I'll give it back. You know when they call my number, now I'm afraid they had to give my forehead a crack. They're cruising down Market, Continental top down in the sun. They were turning on Trail Street down there by the courthouse, back in London for their fun. They're trying to buy their left and run. Down that track they were on the run. Yeah, way to go. Not too bad, Tom and his friend Jack finally caught up down the track.
All right. There you go. That's the Rum Drum Ramblers. That was called Jack and Tom from their 2012 release called Mean Scene. We'll hear some more music from the Rum Drum Ramblers as we roll on through the program tonight. All right. So it is about 25 after the hour of 11 o'clock on the 5th of November 2018. And it's just you and me tonight. The number is 573-443-8255. I got my eyes peeled if that light starts flashing, and I'll get you on the air. Anything goes. You want to talk about anything, I'm up for it. Okay, let's see what we can do on the radio here for 2.5 hours. All right? Okay, I actually had planned to have a guest on the air tonight, and we had to reschedule it for next week. And I would like to say thank you to my partner, Jay Teutenberg, who does this program on the opposite weeks when I'm not here. And he was gracious enough to sort of let me have next week as well so that I can get this interview in, because the gentleman that I'm interviewing is extremely busy and he could only talk with us. Well, if I was going to do it this year, it would have to be next week. And that man, his name is Andreas Antonopoulos. And for those outside of the Bitcoin blockchain world, it's probably a new name, but he is the go-to guy in my estimation, really anywhere. He's from Greece, and I think we'll be speaking to him from Athens. But literally, as far as experts on Bitcoin and blockchain technology, Andreas Antonopoulos is the guy, in my opinion, anywhere, the whole world. So he'll be here with us. He'll be here with us next week, and I'm extremely excited for that, and I hope that you'll join in. This is the first time a guy like this has spoken to an audience in mid-Missouri, and I think it's about time that people really figure out what's going on with this whole cryptocurrency thing, because it is not what most people think it is, and it certainly isn't going away. So we'll talk with Andreas Antonopoulos next week, and again, extremely excited about that. If you want to get a leg up, I'll put some links up on the website in the next few days, and you can check that out maybe before the show, or just pardon me, or just do a web search for Andreas Antonopoulos, and you'll find many things, including YouTube videos and presentations all over the world. The guy literally is a busy, remarkably busy person. He if he's not presenting somewhere, he's on somebody's radio show somewhere. So we're really lucky to have him, and I'm excited to do that next week, okay? So yeah, Andreas Antonopoulos next week. That will be the 12th and 13th, Monday the 12th, okay? All right, so let's do space weather here, okay? If you're new to the program, I like to talk about things that are happening up there above our heads, and the sun is a big thing up there, and I'm interested in that big ball of light. And so first things first, the sun, been pretty interesting if you lived up north. Even so far south as Ohio, they've had aurora borealis, or the so-called northern lights, for the last couple of nights. There's been a major geomagnetic storm on the sun over the last few days, actually a few days ago. It takes a little while for events on the sun to affect the Earth, depending on what type of an event it is. It will take up to maybe 2-3 days. So what happens is the sun is a dynamic creature out there, and it changes, and it's spinning around, and it has magnetic fields that move all around. In fact, sometimes they shift completely, where the northern pole of the sun actually reverses and becomes the southern pole of the sun. And in between, this enormous object out there that is providing all of the energy for everything in our local neighborhood here. It's not your Pennsylvania power and light, it's the sun, and we don't really have anything without that. But it's not, just a stable sort of thing. It goes through different phases, and at any given time, it might do something. And sometimes it sort of hiccups or burps, I guess is a kind of a interesting way to put it, or an easy way to understand it at least. And it throws off material from its own surface, or it throws off a whole bunch of protons, or a very strong electromagnetic pulse, or something like that. Well, when it does that, and when it's directed toward our planet, well, it has an effect on what we see in the sky, and it can actually affect things like volcanism and weather, and even things like earthquakes. The sun is just the thing, man. It's 99. I say this all the time, but it is just, it is the great majority of the energy and mass in the whole solar system. So anytime there's a change on the sun, it affects everything, all the way out to Pluto. All right. It is the absolute biggest factor in activity and life on Earth. And it's ridiculous to not recognize that. So I do, and that's why I pay attention to it. Okay. So anyway, that's why we have aurora borealis. That's why we have the northern lights and the southern lights down in Australia and New Zealand, because what happens is the material, or the energetic particles that are being thrown off from the surface of the sun, they interact with the magnetic field of the Earth. The Earth also has a magnetic field. And that's a whole nother story, and it's a mystery. It has to do with the core of the Earth and the fact that it's spinning. But even the core of the Earth, we don't really know what it is. For many years, it was said to be iron. Now there are people that say it's a crystalline core of some sort. Some other people say it's like a plasma. But at any rate, it generates a magnetic field, and that magnetic field actually is sort of like a shield as well. It actually protects the planet from incoming solar radiation, not just from the sun, but from gamma ray bursts that might happen somewhere reasonably close, or there are lots of different energies that approach our planet as we move through the solar system and also through the galaxy. Everybody knows that the Earth revolves around the sun. Most people do. And then most people realize that the moon revolves around the Earth. Well, but not everybody realizes that the solar system itself is revolving. The solar system itself, all the sun and all of the 9 planets, or 10, or however many you want to say there are, the asteroid belt, everything, that whole system is also moving around the center of the galaxy. And it takes thousands and thousands of years for it to rotate around the center of the Milky Way. Now, the Milky Way is moving too. Our galaxy, everything's moving. Everything is moving and spinning. That's the one thing you could say about the whole system, all the way down to your DNA and the electrons that spin around those atoms that make up your DNA. Electrons spin around atoms. Planets spin around stars. Stars spin around galactic centers. Galactic centers spin around larger centers. It's a huge, huge wheel within wheel sort of thing. And that's what we're a part of. And we're sort of right in the middle of it in a weird way. The human being, size-wise, you can go way out, and look at gigantic, enormous objects and systems of objects. And then you can go way down small and look at really little things, that are subatomic particles and things like that. And the human being is sort of suspended right in the middle of it. And we get to look at all of it. And some people say that's just like sort of a coincidence or something. I find it extremely profound. And I look up at the night sky and I'm stunned. And it doesn't matter how old I am. I was when I was a child. And the more I learn about it, I think my level of stunnedness, just increases. So anyway, Northern Lights in the last few days up there in Canada and certainly in some of the northern parts of these United States. And if you lived up in Finland or a place like that, wow, really cool stuff. And you get to see all those photos. If you want to go look at them, just go out there and do a search. You can find it. I go to this place called Space Weather. I've been doing it for years, and they've done a great job for many years of sort of documenting what's going on in the skies above our heads. One of the other things I like to talk about are near-Earth asteroids. And these are objects that are identified at some point by somebody, a lot of times by amateur astronomers, but oftentimes by NASA. They've got a pretty sophisticated system now that they look for these things with, because obviously they're of concern if something large enough is on a path that might impact our planet. Obviously, that could cause us, some major concern. So on November the 5th, as of now, the network has reported 19 fireballs. Now, a fireball is different than something dangerous. That's just a rock or something, sometimes even like a piece of dust almost, can become a fireball if it's moving real fast, but they just burn up real fast in the atmosphere and certainly don't have any potential to impact the planet. But there are larger things, and when those get identified, those are more interesting to me. There have been 1,936 potentially hazardous asteroids. That's what they call them. Potentially hazardous. That means at some point in their orbits, they come close enough to the Earth that the scientists think that they might be, there's something to watch at least. Now, there's one that passed by us on November the 2nd, and this one came inside of the moon. So it's about 4/10 of a lunar distance. So that means less than half of the distance between the moon and the Earth. That's how close this thing came, and that's just a whisker in cosmic terms. And that was a pretty big asteroid. That was 9.8 meters. So it's like, I don't know, small house. Anyway, if that hits you or hits anywhere near you, you're going to know it. Anyway, there's a bunch of these things flying around, and the interesting ones are the ones that we don't know about. I always say that, but they're identified all the time, and most of the time they're identified after they pass by, and somebody says, "Whoa, holy smokes! Did you see that? Did anybody else see that?" And an astronomer will report it, and then people will check their scopes because they've got all kinds of technology now that's attached to all the telescopes. People are recording things all the time now. Heck, you can train a telescope on the moon if you got a good one, and just train a telescope on the moon and record it for, I don't know, a couple nights, 3 nights, 5 nights, a week. I don't know. Maybe you got to do it for a month. But anyway, you'll see some weird stuff. You'll be like, what in the hell was that? A lot of times it'll be satellites passing in front of the moon or whatever. But sometimes, people will see a rock hit the moon and you'll see a little impact. Or there was something a few weeks ago where a couple of amateur photographers actually got an impact on the moon, and it got very little fanfare and very little press because that's not the thing. That's a little too close for comfort. I think people don't like to talk about it. Certainly not on the news or whatever. But anyway, we are living in an environment where there are things flying around everywhere, and just like our magnetic field is a protective mechanism for the planet, so is the atmosphere. The atmosphere is. Obviously, it's something that we need to survive because it provides the air that we breathe, but it also provides sort of a shield from incoming objects because unlike the moon, there's nothing on the moon, that really slows the things down or will allow them to burn up or at least become smaller as they approach the surface of the thing, right? So on the Earth, though, we've got a nice thick atmosphere with lots of nitrogen and oxygen and lots of other things up there that get really thick the closer you get to the planet. And that tends to burn things up as they're moving inward because they're moving real fast. And the heat that's generated from the speed that they're moving at, most of the time it burns them up in the atmosphere. And that's when people see things, like fireballs in the sky, and sometimes they explode, above the surface of the Earth. In fact, I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago about that Tunguska incident that happened in Russia in the early 1900s. And that was a significant, they don't call it an impact because I believe that it was an airburst. The thing exploded before it actually hit the ground, but man, it leveled miles and miles and miles of forest. And again, if you lived around there, forget it. It was over, and it was a huge event globally. It affected the weather around the world for years. In fact, there has been some studies that have shown that the cooling that happened in the early, like around between 1905, 1910 or so. Don't quote me exactly, but I think it was in that period. Actually, was associated with the debris field that was kicked up from the Tunguska event. So anyway, these things are flying around, and it's nice to know if they're going to hit you. Maybe it's not, I guess. I don't know. But they're out there, and there are people looking for them, and they post information about them, and I report it to you. So hopefully nothing smashes into us tonight and we can finish this radio show. We got 2 hours and 20 minutes left. Let's see if we can make it through. Okay. All right. What else about space weather? This week in the sky. Okay. So the time change, I don't know if you live in the Midwest, if you're listening to the program from somewhere else, sometimes you have the time change like we do here, and sometimes you don't. But anyway, we recently moved the clocks back an hour, just yesterday, I guess. And so it changes things in the sky in the morning and at night, because a lot of times the best things are right at dusk and right at dawn. So right now, as a matter of fact, tonight, Mars just putting out a great show on these November evenings. The beautiful red planet will be about 35 degrees above the southern horizon when darkness falls, and that's in North America here. And that's basically hold your arm out and then well, I won't say do the Heil Hitler thing because that's about the angle you want, and I do not endorse any of that philosophy. But at any rate, that's about 35 degrees, and if you look to the south, you'll see a bright light that's glowing very red. It'll have certainly a red tint to it, and that is not a star. It's the planet Mars, and you'll see the backdrop of Capricornus, the constellation of Capricornus, this evening, and for the next week or so at least in that particular position. Okay, tomorrow in the morning you can see Mercury. It'll reach what they call elongation, eastern elongation, and it'll get to the highest point in the southwestern sky a little bit after sunrise, and it'll be about 23, I don't know, it'll be a little bit east of the sun, all right? And it'll just scrape the horizon for people in the northern latitudes here. You'll have to look pretty close to the horizon if you want to see that. What else? New moon on Wednesday, November the 7th. That'll happen in the morning. What that means, for those who aren't familiar with new moon, in the new moon phase, the moon crosses the sky pretty much in line with the sun. So the glare of the sun pretty much obstructs the reflection of the moon, so you just can't see it for a day or two until it moves out of that particular position. Full moon is the opposite of that, where the moon is completely opposed. All right, what else? Thursday, a little bit about Venus, nothing too exciting there. I think the Perseid meteor showers, actually it was the Leonids? No, one of those two happened in the last couple of days, but I think we missed it. So if you're looking up in the sky tonight and you want to see something, you'll have to get lucky. All right, so that's about what's going on in the skies above our heads. We'll come back in a few minutes. I'm going to play another song here from the Rum Drum Ramblers, and we'll come back and do some news. Once again, the phone number is 573-443-8255. I'd love it if somebody call and give me some company here. In the meantime, we'll hear another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers. It's Mike, and you're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. Once again, on the web, kopn.org, and my website at mikehagan.com. You can always find interesting stuff over there at the website. And there's a link there at the website that I should mention that says forum. And if you go to the forum, I've created actually a subreddit, over there on the main Reddit site, and it's just Radio Orbit. If you go to Reddit and you type in Radio Orbit, you can go to the subreddit that I've created, and I post all kinds of stuff there, stories that I'm interested in, news things. In fact, most of the news that I'll be talking about a little bit later, I'll pull off of that website because I've already posted all this stuff up there on the forum, and then I can kind of just grab it when I want to read it and look at it, okay? So if you're interested, go to my site at mikehagan.com and then click on the link that says forum, and that'll take you over to the Reddit forum, and you don't have to join up or anything. You can, you're welcome to, but in fact, I'd love it if you did, but you don't have to. You can see everything there and link up to all the things that I'm talking about during the program, okay? All right, once again, it's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit, and this is the Rum Drum Ramblers, St. Louis music. You listen to it on KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM, and this one is called Jump Into a Frenzy. How about it?
Jump into a frenzy and down. Don't be apprehensive when the bottom falls out and your chips fall down. Jump into a frenzy tonight. Shake out all your troubles and scream. Shout it on a double. When you're all done then, man, you just can't win. Jump into a frenzy tonight. Never, 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 never we change our ways. We can keep guessing for days. Never, 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 never a night quite like this. We can jump into a frenzy. Ooh, they won't
Once again, the Rum Drum Ramblers. And you're listening to it on KOPN's Radio Orbit. My name is Mike Hagan, and great music coming out of St. Louis. All right, so who are the Rum Drum Ramblers? You got three guys, Matt Wilson, Ryan Koenig, and Joey Glynn. And Matt plays the guitar and sings. Ryan plays harmonica and does some percussion. They all do some vocals. Actually, I don't know if Joey sings much, but Ryan does some vocals as well. But anyway, Joey plays the upright and the electric bass. And these guys are fantastic. If you ever get a chance to see them or in any of the projects that they're involved in, and they are involved in a bunch of them, go check them out, all right? Most of the stuff that we're listening to tonight was recorded at Uncle Faye's House of Tone in Chicago, Illinois. That's up in my old stomping grounds. And additional tracks at Matt's house in St. Louis, and engineered by a bunch of talented folks, Felix Reyes, Mike Hero, Dave Herrero, and Shane Keel. All right, so great stuff from the Rum Drum Ramblers. We'll hear some more from them as we move on through the program tonight, okay? All right, and it is about 10 minutes before midnight, and I'm going to, let's see if I can follow my own advice here and see if I can't get to my forum, and then we can talk about some of the things that are in the news, okay? Let's see if it's as easy as I said. There it is, right there. Okay, cool. All right, so I have something that I wanted to play, but it's about 11 minutes long, or about 12 minutes long, so I'm going to wait to the top of the hour to play that, and it has to do with the election coming up tomorrow. A big day for everybody, apparently. At least that's what the news folks tell us. It's a big election, and it may well be, and it may not be. I don't know. You know, I'm confused by this type of stuff for the most part. But I will play something that I find very interesting, and I'll just kind of leave that as a teaser for you. And it has to do with a computer programmer who testified under oath to Congress. But I'm just going to leave it at that, and we'll see if you find it as interesting as I did. All right, in the meantime, what else do we have to talk about here in the news? All right, I mentioned that I'm going to have a gentleman on next week named Andreas Antonopoulos, and he is a world-recognized expert in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. He has been in it from the early days, and he is an absolute workhorse. He's out there doing nothing but that for many, many years now, and I'm thrilled to have him on the program. But with that in mind, there's a story here from Japan. Japan is sort of the they're really on the front edge of the crypto news. They seem to be much more willing to embrace the new technology than some of the other countries, including the United States. But I'll read just a clip from this article here. And again, if anybody would like to comment or call and talk about anything, whether I'm talking about it or not, you have something on your mind, please, 573-443-8255. I'd love to hear from you. All right, Japan grants cryptocurrency industry self-regulatory status. Japan's financial service agency on Wednesday gave the cryptocurrency industry self-regulatory status, permitting the Japan Virtual Currency Exchange Association to police and sanction exchanges for any violations. The government has been reviewing its approach toward an industry that has been hit twice by large-scale thefts. The FSA approval gives the industry association rights to set the rules, to safeguard customer assets, prevent money laundering, and give operational guidelines. The association will also have to police compliance. Now, it goes on a little bit further than that, but very interesting stuff coming out of Japan, if that's any indication about what's going to happen in other places. And Japan is the third largest economy on Earth. China and the USA fight it out over who's number one, and depending on who you listen to, you know, one will tell you that they're the biggest and the other one will tell you they are too. At any rate, China and America, definitely the two biggest economies on the planet, and Japan is number 3. So when they start talking about cryptocurrency like this, and they're primarily talking about Bitcoin, it's, you know, something that I think that, you know, you might want to pay attention to. All right. again, all this stuff is up on the website. If you go to my site at mikehagan.com, just click on the link that says forum. It'll take you over to the place where I'm reading most of this stuff from. And I just sort of take stuff that I find in between shows, if I find it interesting, and it doesn't matter what it's about, and I'll post it up there, and then maybe I talk about it or maybe I don't. But if you go there, you can also see that stuff, and then you can comment on and put your own stuff up there or whatever. Okay, all right. So what else do I have here that's fun? Well, this is, I'm sorry that I can't show you this, but I posted this just really silly video about these kids that took a 800-pound tractor tire and rolled it down a mountain. And it just bounced and bounced and bounced, and finally it bounced into a lake. And I know it's probably not good for the lake's environment, but it looked like there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the place where these kids were living. It was not let's say it was a third world country, and I think they kind of did stuff like that for fun. Anyway, once again, you can see that if you go and check it out on the web. All right, what else? There's another one here. Secret tunnels found below Mexico's Pyramid of the Moon. Let's see what this one says. Secret tunnels found below Mexico's Pyramid of the Moon, a passageway to the underworld. Archaeologists have discovered a secret tunnel and a cavity hidden below an ancient pyramid in Mexico that is believed to have been dedicated to the underworld and Toltec rituals. They believe the passageway to the underworld could contain unexplained skulls, among other strange items. The stunning discoveries were found in the archaeological site of Teotihuacan, northeast of Mexico City, in Mexico, according to the Daily Mail. The Pyramid of the Moon is the second largest pyramid in Mexico after the Pyramid of the Sun. Yes, appropriately. And it is believed to have existed prior to 200 AD. All right, so again, things that are being discovered in the hills of Mexico that were unknown before, actually under the ground there, underneath the some of the ancient pyramids there that were built by, who knows, the Toltec, the Aztec, the Olmec. And it always makes me think about how little we really know. We discover things about our own planet all the time. And, here, what the hell's going on underneath the Pyramid of the Moon? Secret tunnel. What do you mean secret tunnels, right? What were they doing there? And what's that all about? And, we don't know. And now there's another question people can go try to ponder, and you can go get a degree maybe and write a paper on it or something. But, we just don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, okay, what else? Ron Paul in the news calling for the exemption of cryptocurrency from capital gains tax. He's taking a note from the Japanese. Ron Paul, always one of my favorites when it comes to economics, at least. Some people might disagree with his foreign policy ideas or whatever, but he certainly understands economics. He comes from the Austrian school, which is, in my opinion, the only place at this point that we're going to find any relief or any real sound money from here on out. And speaking of Austrian economics, there's a place called the Mises Library, and it's Mises. And Mises was a man who, well, I won't say that he pioneered. I guess I will say that, he pioneered an offering of literature and media, of the Austrian school of thought. So the Mises Institute has tons and tons of books and lots of audio and video and old texts of, journals and biographies of old great economists. And you can visit that stuff on the web at the Mises Institute. That's Mises, and there's a tremendous amount of information to be gleaned from the Mises Institute. Anyway, interesting stuff coming out of the economic realm here. What else? Ross Ulbricht. If you remember, about a month ago, we had Lynn Ulbricht, who was is the mother of Ross Ulbricht, the founder, and I guess that's probably not a great word, but the inventor and the builder of the Silk Road website. and who got in the middle of a whole bunch of trouble. And regardless of his guilt or innocence, he is now serving a double life sentence plus 40 years in a maximum security federal penitentiary in Colorado, which in my opinion is absolutely ridiculous for the crimes that he was accused of, never really even proven guilty for anything that harmed anyone. No victims ever even reported or claimed by the prosecution. At any rate, Ross Ulbricht put a letter up on the internet just about a week ago, and if you're interested in that, you can go read that as well. Okay, what else we got? We're just about the top of the hour here. So let's say KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM, Mid-Missouri source for in-depth news, diverse talk, and music of the world. It's more than radio. It's your community radio coming to you on the air, 89.5 on the FM dial, and streaming on the web, kopn.org. Let's hear one from the Rum Drum Ramblers here, and then we'll come back. And again, the phone lines are open, 573-443-8255. Please give me a call. I'd love to talk. We got 2 more hours to go for the program, and I already need to drink some water because my mouth's getting dry because I got to talk here without anybody to help me out. All right? But I got a few minutes here to take a break. This one is called All the Little Days. Rum Drum Ramblers on KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM, Radio Orbit.
on the drain pipe, bumping down the street. Been down and out, boy. Put down my foot, Lord, I swear. I just can't live there, we don't know what.
Oh, yeah, that's another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers, and that one's called All the Little Days. All right, it's Mike. You listen to KOPN Columbia. It's Radio Orbit. It's about 10 minutes after midnight now on the 6th, I guess, of November, Tuesday morning. And I have a little something special for you here in honor of the elections that will be taking place tomorrow, the so-called midterm elections, where you'll be voting for, I guess, some governors and senators, House of Reps, so on and so forth. Anyway, my concern, certainly I love the opportunity to vote, and I think it's a precious sort of privilege that we have here in the United States, and I hope that everybody who is capable and eligible to vote does, and you do that tomorrow. I also have concern, however, about the integrity of the voting system and the legitimacy of the numbers that come out. Doesn't mean that I don't vote. I do. I just question some of the technology underlying the actual counting of the vote. And to sort of back up my claim here, I'm going to play a piece that is the basis of an incredible documentary, or certainly a story, of this guy whose name was Clint Curtis. And Clint Curtis was a computer programmer who was contracted by this a private company that was called Yang Enterprises. And eventually Yang Enterprises would be shown to be connected to Chinese intelligence and all kinds of things. But at any rate, this guy Clint Curtis was contracted to write a program that could be used to rig elections. And it involves a whole bunch of things, including the Florida Department of Transportation, corrupt ties to leading members of the Diebold Company, which is one of the... There aren't many companies that make these machines. A dead Florida Department of Transportation investigator, Raymond Lemmy. Anyway, it's a very interesting story, and what I'm going to play for you here is the basis for the story. It is the testimony under oath in front of Congress of Clint Curtis. And this was, I I believe in 2012. At any rate, it was right around that time, and hopefully they'll give us the date and stuff as we get into it here. And if not, I'll come back at the end of this piece, and I will tell you exactly when it was recorded, okay? All right, it's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. Once again, this is Clint Curtis in front of Congress just a few years ago.
Mr. Curtis, would you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Clinton Eugene Curtis,
And where do you reside?
Tallahassee, Florida.
And what is your profession?
I'm a computer programmer.
Would you please speak into the microphone so the audience can hear your testimony?
I'm a computer programmer.
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes,
How do you know that to be the case?
because in October of 2000, I wrote a prototype for President Congressman Tom Feeney at the company I work for in Oviedo, Florida, that did just that.
And when you say did just that, it would rig an election?
It would flip the vote 51-49 to whoever you wanted it to go to and whichever race you wanted to win.
And would that program that you designed be something that elections officials that might be on county boards of elections could detect?
They'd never see it.
Mr. Would you answer that question once again?
They would never see it.
So how would such a program, a secret program that fixes the election, how could it be detected?
You would have to view it either in the source code, or you'd have to have a receipt and then count the hard paper against the actual vote total. Other than that, you won't see it.
All right, Mr. Curtis, if you had been asked, you or others with your professional expertise had been asked to design a protective program that would protect the Ohio elections from against such software to fix the election, could you have done so?
If we've been asked to make a program that can fix the election, sure, anybody can do it.
No, could you have designed a program or a procedure or a protocol that would have protected Ohio against this kind of rigging?
No, you have to look at the source code. You have to get probably programmers from both or all parties to look at the source code and determine if there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. I mean, it's a simple program. You're adding 1 to a person's total. It's 100 lines of code tops.
All right. Are you aware of whether there was any protective action in Ohio against this kind of vote rigging through software?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You were not asked to assist in the development of any protective system. Is that correct?
No, I was not.
In Europe, have you reviewed at all the election results in Ohio?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Given the availability of such vote rigging software and the testimony that has been given under oath of substantial statistical anomalies and gross differences between exit polling data and the actual tabulated results, do you have an opinion whether or not the Ohio election, presidential election, was hacked?
Yes, I would say it was. I mean, if you have exit polling data that is significantly off from the vote, then it's probably hacked.
And your testimony is under oath?
Yes, sir.
And the testimony you've given is true?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Waters and I have the same question.
Come back to the podium.
Who did you say you were asked to prepare?
I was asked by Tom Feeney. He's now a congressman. At that time, he was Speaker of the House of Florida, Yang Enterprises, which was the company I work for, lobbyist, and their corporate attorney. He wore a lot of hats.
And at the time, he was the Speaker of the House of Florida. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Congressman.
Did you say he was the lobbyist for the voting machine company at the same time he was Speaker of the House?
I don't know what the voting machine company is. He was a lobbyist for Yang Enterprises. We had NASA contracts and
And Yang Enterprises did what? Computers?
computers.
Okay, and he was your lobbyist, your company's
The
lobbyist.
lobbyist for that company,
And
yes.
he asked you to design a code to rig an election.
Yes,
while he was Speaker of the Florida House.
yes,
This was during or previous to the 2000 election?
yes, October into September.
And did he ever express why he wanted a code to rig an election?
No, I immediately assumed that they were trying to keep you guys from cheating them. So, so I wrote up the documentation of what you would look for in the source code, how you would make sure that you didn't get, taken advantage of, make sure that all voting machines had receipts, because that way you could back count the ones that looked a little funny. And I handed it
By receipts, you mean a paper trail?
Yes, paper trail. And I handed that in to Mrs. Yang and said, here's your report, here's your program. And she said, you don't understand, we need to hide the fraud in the source code.
Hide the fraud, not reveal the fraud.
Not reveal the fraud, because it's needed to control the vote in South Florida, was what she said.
That's what she said.
That's
To your knowledge, was this used?
I have no idea. I was ready to leave, so I retired and left the company.
Your testimony a moment ago, I think you said just before you left, in answer to Congresswoman Tubbs Jones' question. Would you just repeat what you said in terms of the exit polls?
Oh, the exit polls should not be significantly different than the vote.
And if they were, you would conclude what?
I would conclude someone's playing with the vote.
Not with the exit polls?
That's possible too.
Okay, I was going to ask why
something is definitely skewed.
Something is skewed in one or the other about.
Right. To select which one, you'd have to see where the problem is.
Let me ask you one further question. Assuming for the moment that such software, that's what you call it, such software to rig a vote was used in one or more machines in Ohio or in Florida, could you today detect that if you looked at the source code?
If you could get the machines and they have not been patched yet, I mean, once they get in and touch them, anything can happen. You can also set timers to that, but then you see the timers. Then you'd have to take those machines, decompile them, which I couldn't do, but possibly a Microsoft and MIT something could do. You might be able to see it.
You might.
Not necessarily. Depends on how good they are at destroying what they had.
Destroying what they had by tampering with the machine afterwards, or by programming a destroyed instruction in the first place?
Right, because since you didn't...
Either or both?
Either or both. You didn't actually see what's in there, so you don't know if the code is running in a single executable or running in various modules. If it's running in modules, you can make the code actually eat itself.
Let me ask you one further question. I've been told that people who assume that lots of the election results, or that a large fraction of the election result in any state may have been affected by deliberate fraud in the computer, are paranoid, because in order to do that, you have to have access to thousands of machines, and that would be readily detectable. To what extent is that true?
It depends on the technology you use. If you did a central tabulation machine that fed in, all you'd have to do is set a flag. You set a flag, the central tabulation machine would then flip your vote.
So so one person putting in bad code in a central tabulation machine could affect thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of votes.
Right, and you could activate either automatically, or you could make it so that there's code existing on like an electronic machine that feeds it, where you would punch it in, it would set the flag, the server would see the flag, and then...
And if you had a recount, and there were no paper trail, would that be, assuming that had happened, would that be revealable by seeing a discrepancy between what the central tabulator showed and what the individual machines, which had not been tampered with, showed?
Not if I wrote it.
Why not? In other words,
I would make it match.
You could work back from the tabulator to the individual machines, so the tabulator would tell the machines to switch their results?
Yes, it talks both ways. You can flip it to whatever you need.
And they actually do talk to each other, the machines
as long
and
as
the
it's
tabulator.
hooked up, as long as it's networked together, they can talk to each other.
So in other words, there's absolutely no assurance whatsoever on anything with regard to these machines?
Absolutely none, unless you look at the source code and make sure it's safe before it goes out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Mathers. I know that Congresswoman Waters has a question, and then Senator Miller, and then Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones.
This will only take a moment if you would come back to the
I'm new at this.
As you know, there has been a lot of discussion about, I think it was Diebold Company, their relationship to the president and the administration, and supposedly comments about helping to ensure that the president was reelected. In your world, in your environment, have you heard any of this kind of discussion? Do you know people who vote for Diebold? Do you have any sense of any actions that may have been taken?
I don't know anything about that at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, I suspect people will attack you in terms of your credibility. Could you restate once again your credentials?
I'm a programmer. I worked for NASA, worked for ExxonMobil, worked for Florida Department of Transportation, and other elements of my story, because this company, well, let's get into it. Why not? This company also, they have NASA contracts, and they were basically downloading tons of information, I mean gigabytes worth, and handing them off to this little Chinese guy named Henry Nee. And it didn't seem right, and he was hacking things, and I wrote a program for DOT that allowed contractors to send their information into DOT, and he was kind of the quality assurance guy for software. He put a wiretapping module in the program that went out to the contractors so that it actually sent everything they sent back to Yang. So I reported all this, and just last March, I think, he was arrested for attempting to send anti-tank missile chips to the capital of Communist China. So if that's correct, this is such a small thing. Of course, I think he only got a $100 fine. And no time.
Thank you. Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to...
All right, so that's the testimony of a gentleman whose name is Clint Curtis, and I find it compelling, and I wish we would have some ambitious young investigative journalists go out and look a little bit more into the legitimacy of the voting system and the computers that are being used to vote and then to tabulate the vote. This was in early 2000 is when this actually happened. These are the initial claims of Mr. Curtis were in around 2001. That testimony was shortly after the 2000 presidential election, in which George Herbert Walker Bush won the election in a very contested race. And if you remember, Ohio was key in that particular race, and this story is directly related to that. So anyway, very interesting stuff. It's not the only thing out there with regard to rigging of voting machines and the eventual count of the vote. This was big news in the first decade of the 2000s. And for some reason, it's not of much concern, it doesn't seem these days, but to me, it is of every concern. I mean, if you want to make sure that your vote is counted the way you actually placed it, the way you actually cast it, well then, I mean, you got to have some concern after you hear a story like that. And it's not the only one. Again, if you do a web search for vote rigging machines, etc., computers, just use your imagination, but you'll find a whole host of stuff, and some very skilled programmers and some not so skilled said it's very easy to do certain things. Now, how much of that is hyperbole? How much of it is legitimate? Certainly the stuff that Clint Curtis is talking about, I mean, the guy did it under oath in front of Congress, and he certainly has the credentials. You can check out his background. It's been done. So anyway, I wish all of us the best of luck in our vote tomorrow, and I hope that our votes are counted the way they're cast, and I hope that people out there who have the ability to look into things like this actually take the time and do so, because it's imperative to our democracy and the idea of one man, one vote. Otherwise, the whole thing is just theater, you know. All right, it's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. And I think we'll play another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers if no one's going to call me here. I'm going to give out the phone number again, 573-443-8255. I can't believe nobody has anything to say about that. Really? Come on, call me and talk about what you just heard there, or something else. But I'm lonely here, and it's 12:30 almost on the 6th of November, 2018. And if you won't call me, I just have to play the hometown blues. It's Mike. You listen to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. This is the Rum Drum Ramblers.
Look like the gods have another king. Them hometown blues always seem to come around and find it just like this time of year. The people always clowning, steady playing the boo. Got the boats out there well up, in and out of here. So can I sing it? Yes, you can. Can I sing it? Yes, you can. Can I sing it? Yes, you can. So why can't they just understand about what? Man, I so just grown down at the fairground. Let the old man scream. A pretty little baby boy cried. I heard the rooster crowing. I had to let the head down. If you knew all me, I'll make a kiss goodbye. So can I sing it? Yes, you can. Can I sing it? Yes, you can. Can I sing it? Yes, you can. So why can't they just understand? Tell 'em why, man. Oh, it just not a care. A damn hometown blues. Same constantly around this whole town trying to find about this time of year. All the people always clowning, always. Steady playing the blues. They got the button out there way out of in and out of here. So can I sing
All right, we had one more there from the Rum Drum Ramblers. That one was called Hometown Blues. You're listening to it here on KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan. This is Radio Orbit. You can find me on the web at mikehagan.com, MikeHagan. And there's an archive of all these programs and connections with the musical artists that we feature, the Rum Drum Ramblers, tonight. Say that 3 times in a row. It's tough. Anyway, great music coming out of St. Louis, and we'll hear a few more from them between now and 2 a.m. We got about an hour and a half left in the program. And again, the phone number here in the studio, 573-443-8255. Just you and me tonight. I'd love to have a conversation with somebody out there in listener land. Make me feel like I'm not so alone. At any rate, we will continue with the program here. I wanted to say one other thing about space weather. I had something up on my website here on the forum that I forgot about. And the only way you can really get a real feel for it is if you actually go there and look at it. But if you go to the Radio Orbit forum, you'll see one of the posts there. It says gigapixels of Andromeda. And it's basically a super high definition of the Andromeda galaxy, which is one of our neighboring galaxies, but just one of many. And I guess that was sort of the point that I was going to make while we were talking about space weather, is that if you see this, and it's a photograph, but it's done in video fashion. So in other words, they essentially, start at a certain zoom, and then they zoom in, and then they zoom back out. And this is just one galaxy in an ocean of them. And it's this kind of thing that I really, it really just is awe-striking. And I really have to wonder, how could anyone watch something like this thing and not be moved in some way? It's just stunning. The size, the scope of the universe that we live in. It's just unbelievable. At any rate, all right, what else? We normally do some talks about people who struck my interest at some point and are no longer with us. One of them is named Wilhelm Reich, and Reich had an interesting run there. He was a student of Sigmund Freud, maybe 1 generation, 2 generations afterwards. But anyway, he was a psychoanalyst and a psychologist, and he died on the 3rd of November, 1957. He was an Austrian, and he was also a medical doctor. But he was really interested in, what made us tick. He had sort of a weird way about him, very strange in some of his studies and his, I guess, conclusions. But he's one of the guys that sort of influenced the sexual revolution of the 60s and the 70s, probably along with some psychedelic drugs. But at any rate, he was an interesting guy and somebody whose writings I'm very fond of. He has one book in particular that's called The Murder of Christ, and it is it's a masterpiece, and it's not the most uplifting book, but it certainly is a book that will really open your eyes to human nature, the good and the bad of it. Anyway, here's to you. Wilhelm Reich died the 3rd of November, 1957. All right, there's another person who I am extremely fond of, who also died on, close to this day, I guess. His name was Joseph Campbell, and Campbell was a professor at Sarah Lawrence University for many, many years. I guess a professor of literature, but he was also really influential in the field of comparative mythology and comparative religion. And I came across him years and years ago I guess it was in maybe around 1990, and I had a friend that I was working with in Denver, and he gave me this series of tapes, cassette tapes. There were five cassette tapes. Actually, there were six of them actually. And I'm trying to find the actual date of his death, October 30th, 1987. So 31 years ago, on October 30th, Joseph Campbell passed away. And he lived in Hawaii, of all places. Interestingly enough, that's where my friend Terrence McKenna passed away as well. And that's where we were speaking to Dr. Michael Heisen from last week. I guess all the smart guys go to Hawaii. That doesn't surprise me. Maybe I need to up my game a little bit and get the hell out of here and move to the islands. Anyway, all right, so Joseph Campbell, just a remarkable person, and somebody who, like I said, I was given this set of tapes in the early 90s, and I put them in my car, and I would just sort of rotate through them in my cassette player in my car. And after a while, I became really familiar with them, and it was almost like a good album of music where you just wanted to hear it again. And he has that sort of a voice and just the ability to tell stories. And he was interviewed actually by Bill Moyers, who is the legendary PBS correspondent. And this is some of his best work, I think. In fact, maybe certainly in my opinion, Bill Moyers' best work was the series of interviews that he did with Joseph Campbell in the late 80s. And it was just before Joseph Campbell died. I mean, maybe a year or two before he died. Anyway, it was called The Power of Myth. And like I mentioned, there are 6 different tapes, or I guess 6 hours of interviews, and they all sort of cover different topics, but they're remarkable. And for anybody on the planet, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter the color of your skin, it doesn't matter what race or religion you are, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, if you can understand English. And it's probably been translated at this point into many, many different languages. But if you can understand what Joe Campbell was saying, extremely worthwhile. And he is a hero to me. In fact, it's funny because one of his seminal works is called The Hero's Journey. And he talks about the story of the hero throughout history, and even in common storytelling, modern mythology, things like Star Wars. And you can see it in Lord of the Rings. You can see it in all of these sort of adventure tales. And it usually involves a man or a woman who's young and naive and eventually goes through a sort of traumatic event of some sort and ends up sending them on a journey that they perhaps never imagined that they might go on. And along the course of that journey, they are challenged and they face trials and tribulations along the way. And this is what builds them and makes them into a hero. In the end, hopefully they triumph over whatever it is that they were being challenged with. And it's the same in all culture. It's the same over all time. You can go back to the earliest recorded stories, things like Beowulf. You can look at the Christian tradition. You can look at the Islamic tradition. You can look at Buddhism, Hinduism, and all the stories. Although the characters' names may change to protect the innocent, the stories are very, very similar to the point of just a stunning nature. And Joseph Campbell recognized this many, many years ago and made a career out of comparing and contrasting the differences and the similarities primarily between all of these different mythologies, all of these different traditions, all of these different religions. And I'm going to play a little bit from something that I grabbed from my collection here. Actually, you know what? It's about 13 minutes long. So I think I'll chat for another few minutes here, and then we'll play that to finish off the hour, okay? I'll say again that the website is Mike Hagan, radiorobit.com, and if you're not up late enough to listen to the program, or if you get bored and go to sleep or whatever, you can always listen to previous programs from the website there. And you can also connect with the musical artists that I have on the program. Tonight we're featuring the Rum Drum Ramblers from St. Louis. Great stuff from those guys. And I got a note from my friend John Randall, who of course is the amazing musician, guitarist, vocalist for the Hoot and Hollers. They're on the road right now, but they're good friends with these guys, with Matt and Ryan and Joey from Rum Drum, and I think John was glad to see that I was playing some of their music tonight. So anyway, here's to everybody else out there listening. I know there are always people listening, even if you're too shy to call in, but my great friend Mallory out there in Arizona, hello to Mallory, I love you, I miss you. And if any of my family are listening, hello to everybody. You know, it doesn't matter how far away you are, you can still call. In fact, for the friends of mine that I know are listening, I should start to sort of like blackmail you. I could start to tell stories about you on the air until you call in, and until the phone rings, you know, the stories would just get worse and worse, more and more personal, if you know what I mean. But nah, I'm not like that. I won't do that. I won't do that to you, and y'all know who I'm talking to. All right, so what else can I talk about for a couple minutes here before we play this Joseph Campbell piece? I guess I should just keep talking about him. You know, the reason that I really got interested in him to begin with was because he was really interested in Native American history. And I'm very interested in Native American history and Native American, current events. It's an absolute travesty and a appalling situation and an embarrassment to the United States of America if you see the way that the great majority of Native American citizens are treated and the situations in which they have to live. Go to the Dakotas. Go to Arizona, where Mallory lives. Go to Oklahoma. There are reservations all over this country, and most of them are living in squalor, and there's very little said about it. There's a lot said about other minority groups, and everybody deserves their say and their rights, and nobody is better than anybody else. However, it seems to me that the Native American people are ignored in a country where they are the real Americans. They were here before any of us got here, before any of our ancestors got here. And if any of us are lucky, perhaps we have some of their blood in us. Anyway, Joseph Campbell was a huge advocate and a brilliant scholar with regard to Native American history and Native American mythology. I mean, he knew just so many details about all these different tribes, just down to the, down to the nuts. It's incredible how much he knew. And he wrote about much of it, and he taught about a lot of it. He's got many, many books that are out there, and you can read, anything, by Joseph Campbell. The Hero's Journey is fantastic. The Hero with 1,000 Faces is another one that is absolutely seminal work. He has all kinds of different work on Native Americans. He was a scholar. He studied William Blake, and he's considered one of the foremost Blake scholars, and a genius, and somebody who had all kinds of things to offer to us. So with about 13 minutes before the top of the hour, I will offer this to you. Some of the words of wisdom of Joseph Campbell, who left us about 31 years ago on October. I think he actually died on October the 31st, not the 30th. But at any rate, here's Joseph Campbell, and I hope you enjoy this. It's Mike. You're listening to KOP on Columbia, Radio Orbit.
I always tell my students, follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss?
Your bliss, where the deep sense of being in form and going where your body and the soul want to go. When you have that feeling, then stay with it and don't let anyone throw you off. Have you ever read Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt?
Not in a long time.
Do you remember the last line? I've never done a thing I wanted to in all my life.
Quite a
That's
minute.
the man who never followed his bliss. Well, I heard that line. I was living in Bronxville when I was teaching at Sarah Lawrence. Before I was married, I used to be eating out in the restaurants of the town for my lunch and dinners. And Thursday night was the maid's night off in Bronxville, so that all the families were out in the restaurants. And one fine evening, I was in my favorite restaurant there. It was a Greek restaurant. And at a table was sitting a father, a mother, and a scrawny little boy, about 12 years old. The father says to the boy, drink your tomato juice. And the boy says, I don't want to. And the father, with a louder voice, says, drink your tomato juice. And the mother says, don't make him do what he doesn't want to do. The father looks at her and he says, he can't go through life doing what he wants to do. Said, if he does only what he wants to do, he'll be dead. Look at me. I've never done a thing I wanted to in all my life. I said, my God, Babbitt incarnate. And that's the man who never followed his bliss. Well, you may have a success in life, but then just think of it. What kind of life was it? What good is it? You've never done the thing you wanted to in all your life.
What happens when you follow your bliss?
You come to bliss. In Sanskrit, which is the great spiritual language of the world, and they know all about it and have known about it for a long time. The transcendent is transcendent. But there are three terms that bring you to the brink. You might say the jumping off place to the ocean. And the three terms are Sat, Chit, Ananda. And Sat, the word Sat means being. Chit means full consciousness. And Ananda means rapture. So I thought, I don't know whether my consciousness is full consciousness or not. I don't know whether my being is proper being or not, but I do know where my rapture is. So let me hang on to rapture, and that'll bring me both being and full consciousness, and it works.
What was your rapture?
Well, it started with Indians, and then it went on into more and more mythological matters and the realm of the arts, music, and when I met Gene, then the dance came in, and this is it. Just stay with that.
And one doesn't have to be a poet to do this. Carpenters do it.
A poet is simply one who's made a profession and a lifestyle of being in touch with that. Most people have to be concerned with other things. They get themselves involved in economic and other activities, or you're drafted into a war that isn't the one you're interested in. And how to hold to this umbilical, you might say, on those circumstances, that's a technique each one has to work out for himself somehow. But most people living in that realm of what might be called occasional concerns, they all have the capacity that's waiting to be awakened to move to this other place. I know it. I've seen it happen in students. Wonderful way of teaching we had at Sarah Lawrence, where I taught for 38 years. I'd have an individual conference with every one of my students at least once a fortnight for half an hour or so. And there you're talking on about the things that students ought to be reading, and suddenly you hit on something that the student really responds to. You can see the eyes open, the complexion changes, life possibility has opened there, and all you can say to yourself is, I hope this child hangs on to that, you know. They may or may not, but when they do, they've found a life right there in the room with you.
How would you advise somebody to tap that spring of eternal life, that joy that is right there?
Well, we're having experiences all the time, which may, on occasion, render some sense of this, a little intuition of where your joy is. Grab it. No one can tell you what it's going to be. I mean, you've got to learn to recognize your own depths.
Do you ever have this sense when you're following your bliss, as I have at moments, of being helped by hidden hands?
All the time. It's miraculous. I even have a superstition that has grown on me as the result of invisible hands coming all the time. Namely, that if you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you. And the life that you ought to be living is the one you're living somehow. And when you can see it, you begin to deal with people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open doors to you. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be.
Do you ever have sympathy for the man who has no invisible means of support?
Who has no invisible means? Yes, he's the one that evokes compassion, you know, the poor chap. And to see him stumbling around when the water of immortal life is right there is really, it evokes one's pity.
Right there? Right there? You believe that?
Yes.
The waters of eternal life?
Right there.
Where?
Wherever you are. If you're following your bliss. I mean, you're having that joy, that refreshment, that life all the time.
So these stories of mythology are simply trying to express a truth that can't be grasped any other way.
It's the edge, the interface between what can be known and what is never to be discovered, because it is a mystery transcendent of all human research. The source of life. What is it? No one knows.
Why are stories important for getting at that?
Well, I think it's important to live life with a knowledge of its mystery and of your own mystery. And it gives life a new zest, a new balance, a new harmony to do this. I mean, therapy and psychological therapy, when people find out what it is that's ticking in them, they get straightened out. And what is it that life is? I find thinking in mythological terms has helped people visibly. You can see it happen.
How? What does it do?
It erases anxieties. It puts them in accord with the inevitables of their life, and they can see the positive values of what are the negative aspects of what is positive. It's whether you're going to say no to the serpent or yes to the serpent. It's easy as that.
No to the adventure?
Yeah, the adventure of being alive, of living.
When I was growing up, tales of King Arthur, tales of the medieval knights, tales of the dragon slayers were very strong in my world.
Dragons represent greed, really. The European dragon guards things in his cave, and what he guards are heaps of gold and virgins. And he can't make use of either of them, but he just guards. There's no vitality of experience, either of the value of the gold or of the female whom he's guarding there. Psychologically, the dragon is one's own binding of oneself to one's ego, and you're captured in your own dragon cage. And the problem of the psychiatrist is to break that dragon, open him up, so that you can have a larger field of relationships. Jung had a patient come to him who felt alone, and she drew a picture of herself as caught in the rocks. From the waist down, she was bound in rocks, and this was on a windy shore, and the wind blowing and her hair blowing, and all the gold, which is the sign of the vitality of life, was locked in the rocks. And the next picture that he had her draw had followed something he had said to her. Suddenly, a lightning flash hit the rocks, and the gold came pouring out. And then she found reflected on rocks round about the gold. And there was no more gold in the rocks. It was all available on the top. And in the conferences that followed, those patches of gold were identified. They were her friends. She wasn't alone. but she had locked herself in her own little room and life, but she had friends. Do you see what I'm meaning? This is killing the dragon. And you have fears and things. This is the dragon. That's exactly what that's all about. At least the European dragon. Chinese dragon is different.
What is it?
It represents the vitality of the swamps, and the dragon comes out beating his belly and saying, ha, 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 ha. You know, that's another kind of dragon. And he's the one that yields the bounty and the waters and all that kind of thing. He's the great, glorious thing. But this is the negative one that cuts down.
So what you're saying is if there are not dragons out there, and there may not be...
The real dragon is in you.
And what is that real dragon?
That's your ego holding you in.
What's my ego?
What I want, what I believe, what I can do, what I think I love, and all that. What I regard as the aim of my life and so forth. It might be too small. It might be that which pins you down. And if it's simply that of doing what the environment tells you to do, it certainly is pinning you down. And so the environment is your dragon as it reflects within yourself.
How do I slay?
How do you?
Slay that dragon in me. What's the journey I have to make? You have to make. Each of us has to make. You talk about something called the soul's high adventure.
My general formula for my students is follow your bliss. I mean, find where it is and don't be afraid to follow it.
Can my bliss be my life's love or my life's work? Is it my work or my life?
Well, if the work that you're doing is the work that you chose to do because you are enjoying it, that's it. But if you think, oh, gee, I couldn't do that, you know, that's your dragon that's locking you in. Oh, no, I couldn't be a writer. Oh, no, I couldn't do what so-and-so is doing.
Unlike the classical heroes, we're not going on our journey to save the world, but to save ourselves.
And in doing that, you save the world. I mean, you do. The influence of a vital person vitalizes. There's no doubt about it. The world is a wasteland. People have the notion of saving the world by shifting it around and changing the rules and so forth. And no, any world is a living world if it's alive. And the thing is to bring it to life. And the way to bring it to life is to find in your own case where your life is and be alive yourself, it seems to me.
But you say I have to take that journey and go down there and slay those dragons. Do I have to go alone?
If you have someone who can help you, that's fine too. But ultimately, the last trick has to be done by you.
Wow. All right. Joseph Campbell and some remarkable and classic material from about 30 years ago with Bill Moyers. Now, I mistakenly mentioned William Blake before the break there, and James Joyce is who I was thinking of, and just drew a blank there. But yeah, Joseph Campbell is considered, even in his posthumous state, one of the foremost James Joyce scholars. In particular, his work, Finnegan's Wake, Campbell was able to sort of decipher that book better than anybody else so far along the way. So anyway, he was a remarkable guy and somebody who I am just thrilled to have discovered along my own journey here. And there's so much of his material that you didn't hear, but that was a nice little chunk to give you an idea of what Joseph Campbell is about. You're listening to KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan, and this program is Radio Orbit. Every other Monday, typically, although I'll be with you for the next couple weeks, we do this program. And normally I would have a guest on the air with me, and we would do an interview with somebody like Michael Hyson, like we did last, a couple weeks ago. But tonight I had a guest planned, but was not able to work that out. We're going to do that next week, and that'll be the world-renowned Bitcoin expert, Andreas Antonopoulos. That's next week, 11 o'clock on Monday. But for now, we've got another hour or so, and I've been trying to get you folks to call in all night. I don't know what it takes. Maybe I got to offer something for free. I have what do I got? There's a Weber. I got a Paul Weber CD. Paul Weber and the Scrappers, a great record. One of my favorite records from the last year or two out of Columbia here. Traditional country, beautiful music, and Paul Weber and the Scrappers. If somebody calls up, first one to call, 443-8255. That's area code 573-443-8255. Give me a call and just say hi, and you don't even have to chat about anything. You just give me your name, and I'll put that name on the CD, and it'll be sitting here waiting for you if you come up here to the station sometime. Now, if you don't call now, man, it's really going to make my buddy Paul feel bad because nobody wants his record, or it's going to make me feel bad because nobody's listening, which is probably closer to the case. Anyway, it's about 5 minutes after 1 on November the 6th. It's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit. Let's play one here from the Rum Drum Ramblers, and then I'll come back and try to make something happen with my phones.
1, 2, 3, 4.
When I'm going out on the town, I've got the ladies' buttons down, but they wait. Yes, they wait at my place. Yes, they wait. And I'm pacing all around. I've got to knock these cobwebs down, but they stay. Yes, they stay up all day. Yes, they wait. Now it's hard out on the mean scene, and it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. All right, boys. At my slow and even pace, but I try. Tell me why, by and by. Yes, I try. And it's that time that you meet when you find you're strung up by your feet. Cause it's a mean scene. I'm telling you, and it's hard out on the mean scene. And it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. Now listen, it's hard out on the mean scene, and it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. Now I'm not lost where I am found, but now I'm in the highway bound, and I pray. Yes, I say, for feeling strange. What you say? Well, I said young love is dumb love, mature love is sure love. No love, boy, it turned cold love, new love, and it's true. I mean, it's hard out on the mean scene, and it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. Now I'm telling you, boy, I need a heart out on the mean scene, and it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. And it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. And it's hot in the city, and it's been hard living for me. Yes, indeed. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay.
All right. There you go. That's another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers. That one is called Mean Scene. That is the title track from the record that I've been playing tracks from the whole night. Appreciate it, guys. Great stuff coming out of St. Louis. The Rum Drum Ramblers. You can find them on the web, obviously. Also, Bandcamp, YouTube, all that stuff. They're all around. All right. I've got someone on the line here, so we're going to say hello. Who's this? Welcome to Radio Orbit.
Hi, I guess that's me. This is Kay.
Hi, Kay. How's it going?
Okay, I just came to bed and turned on the radio and heard you for the first time, but the guy you played, oh, shoot, now I can't say his name.
Oh, Joseph Campbell just a minute ago?
Joseph Campbell, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was a school teacher. I'm retired. And I used to teach adult classes every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
And we would watch those CDs.
Wow.
Or DVDs, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, huh?
Quite a guy, yes.
Yeah, he's one of my heroes to this day, and that stuff is timeless. I think you can listen to that. Doesn't matter who you are or when you listen to it. I think if you're open your ears, you can really get something from that stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Iowa, but I'm in Jefferson City now.
Jefferson City. So you're getting a pretty good signal from KOPN down there in Jeff City, huh?
Yeah, very good.
All right. Well, great. Well, are you a fan of traditional country music?
Sure. I like all kinds of music.
Well, I have a great CD that I'm gonna send to you.
Ah.
So if you'll do me a favor and just hold on for a second, I'm going to put on another song here, and then I'll grab you off the air, and you can give me your name and your phone number or something, and I'll figure out a way to get this thing to you. There's a band, a local band here from the Columbia area. They're called Paul Weber and the Scrappers, and since it's the first time you've heard my program, you haven't heard them. I featured them a few weeks ago, but just fantastic music, and I think you'll really like it. So I was trying to get somebody to call me. I've been telling people all night, please give me a call. Normally on this show, I'd be doing an interview right now, and I do kind of these long sort of in-depth interviews, but my guest for tonight had to reschedule, so I just decided that I would take some phone calls, and you're the first person to call. So I sure appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. What topics do you interview people on?
Oh, gosh, all kinds of different things. The last time I was on the air, I talked to a marine biologist from Hawaii, and we talked about dolphin and whale intelligence and the language barrier between humans and those other creatures.
Oh, my.
And I don't know. I like science and technology and that type of stuff, but I also like history and mythology, so a lot of it centers on that type of stuff,
Uh-huh. Well, I lead a book study, an adult book study, and we've been together since 2008, every day, or every week,
Oh,
one day a week.
Uh-huh. Cool. How big's the group? Is it down there in Jeff City?
Yes.
How big's your group?
It's smaller now than it was. There's only 4 of us now, but we started out with, I believe, 8. So we're down to half, but we're faithful.
What are you reading these days?
Right now we're reading Real Love by Greg Bayer.
I'm not familiar with it. You want to give us the synopsis?
It's all about how to, I guess Joseph Campbell would say, if you're not following your bliss, you haven't received unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is about how to receive it and how to give it. And it kind of turns your world upside down from how you grew up.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, probably the majority of us, have been through something or another that really is difficult, and that over time can become really problematic, and it's hard to get through and to really find out who you really are,
Yeah. He gives you four paragraphs in the beginning to read to see if you can identify any unconditional love in your life. It's quite interesting.
Very interesting.
Actually, we're reading it for the second time, because the first time, it was several years ago, but we feel like we're ready for that information on a new level now.
Isn't it weird how you can read a book twice and the second time it seems like a completely different book?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's true.
I've had some weird experience where I actually thought it was different. I thought, could it have been that different? I thought, wow, it's almost like they rewrote it.
Yeah. You're a different person.
I guess that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
They say, it's like peeling an onion.
Yeah.
We live layers of life, and after a few more years of life, you see things differently.
That is the truth. That is the truth. Well, thank you again for calling. Hold on just for a minute, okay? And I'll grab you off the air here in a second, okay?
Okay, thanks.
What was your name again? I'm sorry?
Kay.
All right. That's great, Kay. Thanks again for calling. Just hold on, okay?
Okay.
All right. This is Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. I'm going to play another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers here so I can have a talk with Kay off the air and get her a copy of that Paul Weber CD. And in the meantime, the number is 573-443-8255. You're welcome to call and say hello as well, and maybe I'll have something for you. This one is called Gonna Haunt You. Rum Drum Ramblers on KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. This is Radio Orbit.
Well, now, if you think that I wouldn't understand, if you think me no more than simple man, if you think on all the years gone by, if you think I'm gonna let this fly, baby, I think it's gonna haunt you, gonna be right there by your side, baby, I think it's gonna haunt you. When we laugh, it's just a moment's time. When it's sad, I scratch down a rhyme. When she cries, she swears she's doing fine. When I smile, Lord, I fix my time, baby. I think it's gonna haunt you, keeping you all about your bed, baby. I think it's gonna haunt you. All right. Gonna haunt you. Hey! All right. Be right there by your side, baby. I think it's gonna haunt you, keeping you all up out your bed, baby. I think it's gonna haunt you, it's gonna haunt you, baby. I think it's gonna haunt you.
All right, that was another one from the Rum Drum Ramblers. That's called Gonna Haunt You. Great stuff there. And let me say hello to somebody else here on the air. After I say it's Mike, you're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia. Hi, who's this?
This is Paul.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Okay.
What's going on tonight?
You were, listening to you and multitasking.
Yeah?
Yeah, and, you had some computer guys on talking about rigged electronic ballot.
Yeah. What do you think about that, man?
I own a book called How Elections Are Stolen, and it talks about gerrymandering and disenfranchising voters.
Sure.
We've all heard about this.
Yeah.
And, well, it's disgusting. And I hear tomorrow's election is very important.
That's what everyone is saying, for sure.
Yeah, I hope I can make it out. I'm under the weather right now.
Yeah, this weather, I think a lot of people are sort of feeling it, the sort of in-between seasons. There's a lot of flu and a lot of colds and stuff right now. Hope you feel better, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you get out there, man. You need to go vote. We all do. So I bet you get out there if I know you.
I'm going to try. I've been having trouble getting out of bed.
Oh, man.
And keeping my balance.
Well, don't do it if it's dangerous for you.
Well, I just don't know what's wrong with me. And I've heard some good shows from you in the past.
I sure appreciate you listening.
I don't mind the solar weather. You had some guy on more than 10 years ago. He was from the Air Force. And he was talking about UFOs. And
I wonder if it was
he saw one in the late 40s, and he knew it was electric. And he knew the government.
Oh, yeah. Willie, what was his last name?
I forgot.
I forget it too, but I do remember talking to him, and he was interested in Tesla and a lot of what he considered.
Oh, yeah, he said all that technology for the UFOs came from Tesla.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy.
Yeah, he said he saw some guy give a lecture at Air Force Base, and after it was over, he said, "You're a liar," and the guy just grinned at him. And, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, I've been appreciating your show.
Well, hey, I sure appreciate you listening, man.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, hang in there, and I'll be on the air again next week, so listen in, and maybe we can talk again.
All right, later.
All right, take care of yourself, Paul.
You too, bye.
All right, bye. All right, it's Mike. You're listening to KOPN Columbia. The number is 573-443-8255 if you want to get in on the chat here. I'd like to make a couple comments, though. First of all, very interesting that Kay called. That was really cool. I appreciate her calling. She got herself a fresh new copy of Paul Weber and the Scrappers CD, which I'm going to get off to her right away. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to mention with regard to Joseph Campbell that she sort of reminded me of. The first one is that during his talk, or that clip that we heard with Bill Moyers, he talks. Both of them are talking about something that they say being helped by hidden hands. That's the way they describe it. They say that if you follow your bliss, which I guess means follow your heart and don't be afraid to do what you feel is right for you, that if you do that you will be somehow helped by hidden hands. And I have a little bit of my own experience with that, and I think that it's true. I have another way of sort of saying it, but I think it's the same thing. And I've adopted a version of that from another friend of mine who was a very courageous man, and his name was Terrence McKenna, and his birthday is actually coming up the 16th of November. So sometime within the next couple of weeks when I do a program, I'll probably do something with regard to Terrence. But at any rate, he had a phrase that was very similar to being helped by hidden hands. And he said, nature loves courage. Nature loves courage. And I find that that's the truth. That if you can be strong enough to do what you know is right, even if it's hard, even in the face of, what seems perhaps impossible, that you will somehow be helped by something, helped by hidden hands. But you have to make the effort. You have to take the leap. And, and sometimes when you take the leap, you crash and burn. But you still got to take it, because unless it kills you, you can get up and you can learn something from it. And sometimes you take the leap and you land in a feather bed, So nature loves courage. And if you can show that, you can have the experience yourself of perhaps being helped by hidden hands. All right, so thanks very much to Kay for calling, and Paul. We've still got a half an hour at least left in the program. 443-8255. That's 573-443-8255. If you'd like to call and say hi, I'd love to talk with you. One other thing about Joseph Campbell, there's a word called serendipity that Kay reminded me of, and if you don't know what it means, it kind of just means come across something by luck, something kind of cool, but just by chance, but something that's sort of synchronistic, that just sort of jives with your adventure. And where this comes from, the word serendipity is from the Sanskrit serendwipa, and it stands for the Isle of Silk. And it's an old story, very, very old story, about a family that is on an adventure trying to reach the Isle of Silk, which was also known as Ceylon. And the adventures along the way were described as serendipitous. That's where we get the word. And pretty interesting sort of history, really interesting sort of serendipitous thing that just happened between me and Kay. And she reminded me of that. So I love it. Very cool. All right. It's Mike. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. And we've got about 35 minutes of the program left tonight. It's been a pleasure to be with you. I hope you're enjoying the program. If you're out there, even if you're not calling in, I convinced a couple of you to, at least, and I'll give you another 35 minutes to get your courage up and give me a call. It's 573-443-8255. What else do we have to talk about in the meantime? I had some other stuff in the news that I didn't mention. There is a story here and the title is pretty striking. A lot of this stuff is sort of clickbait, I realize that, but the story here from the Daily Mail in London is titled, "Have They Found the Elixir of Eternal Youth? Scientists Reverse the Aging Process in Landmark Trial." And this is from just the 29th of October, okay? All right, and I'll just read a little bit of it to you. "The secret of eternal youth may have been unlocked by scientists in remarkable research that paves the way for a forever young drug. Lives could be longer and healthier, free from illnesses such as Alzheimer's and heart disease, with skin and hair retaining its youthful luster. Such a drug might allow men and women to have children naturally until they are a ripe old age. Increasing the number of years of healthy life would greatly ease health service costs and reduce the burden on families caring for frail relatives. The experiments mirror the plot of the film, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, where the lead character, played by Brad Pitt, ages in reverse. They were carried out by cancer doctor Ronald DePinho of Harvard University in the U.S. and detailed in the prestigious journal Nature." So I won't go into it any further than that, but they're saying that somebody has found what they claim is potentially an elixir of eternal youth. Now, we'll see if you and me can get our hands on that. That'd be nice. I don't know. I'm skeptical. All right, that story and many more are up on my forum. If you go to the website, Mike Hagan, Hagan.com, and just click on the little button that says forum, it'll take you over to the subreddit, the Radio Orbit subreddit, and I post all kinds of stories there. And if you go there, then you can post stories too, and you can also comment on the things that other people are posting. And it's a nice little way to kind of build the community of people that listen to this program. That's my goal, at least. It's moving slow, I'll be honest with you. But hey, I've only been doing the program for a couple of months, and most of the people that used to listen to this program when I was doing it, 10, 12 years ago, they're either gone or forgot about it. So we'll have to reinvigorate the crowd and and get some people joining us on the forum and on the phones and all that stuff. Now, next week, I can guarantee you there's going to be some people listening next week, not because of me, but just because the guest I have is a complete and utter phenomenon in the world that he operates. And so, Andreas Antonopoulos next week, if you're around, you certainly won't be alone listening to that one, okay? All right, so what else do I have to talk about here? Wow, this was an incredible story. I think I'm going to actually play this. All right, I'm going to tell you the phone number one more time, and then I'll tell you a little bit about this story. And then if nobody calls, I'll actually play this. It's about 13 minutes long, and the story is headlined "People Who Remember Every Second of Their Life." Yeah, that's the headline. Basically, there was a 60 Minutes piece that I was able to watch recently, and it's from Australia. It wasn't aired here in the U.S., but it was aired in Australia not long ago, in September of this year. So it's only a couple months old. It's pretty fresh, not even about 6 weeks old, okay? So here's the premise of the story. And there's a really interesting character in it. One of my favorite actresses. Her name is Mary Lou Henner, and she's done some really great stuff in the past, and I love her from this one silly film called Johnny Dangerously. It's probably one of the things that I doubt if she'd probably be very proud of it on her resume, but it was the silliest movie with like Michael Keaton and Mary Lou Henner and a few other folks, obviously. But anyway, it's a great movie, and I've always loved her from that and from the series Taxi, where she plays opposite of Tony and Latka and all those guys. So anyway, Mary Lou Henner is one of the central figures in this story. So the premise is this, is that some people are able to remember every detail, essentially every moment of their life, back to the age of around 10 or 12 years old. In other words, every day they could pretty much remember any day the same way you and I might remember yesterday. They can tell you what the weather was. They can tell you what they had for breakfast. They can tell you any kind of significant news that may have happened on that particular day. But they can go back decades, and they can do it with every day, essentially, of their adult life. And it is a really remarkable story. And if you don't believe it, I'm going to let you listen to it right now, okay? And when we come back, we'll have about 15 minutes left. We'll take a couple phone calls if anybody wants to comment on this story. If not, we'll hear another one or two from the Rum Drum Ramblers, and then we will head out of here at 2 o'clock. I'm not sure who's taking over at 2 o'clock. I understand there's a new person who will be taking the 2 to 5:30 spot. And I'm hoping that they are listening and that they get here on time and safely and everything, because I'd like to go home. and well, not right now, but when my shift is over at 2 o'clock. All right, so in the meantime, let's listen to this remarkable story from 60 Minutes Australia, and it's titled Total Recall. It's Mike, you're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia.
Imagine being able to remember every minute detail of your life. You can recall what the weather was like, what you were reading, or what you wore to the shops at any minute, any hour, or any day stretching back decades. It sounds like some kind of parlour trick, but it's actually a real and very rare medical phenomenon. So far, scientists have identified 10 cases worldwide. And believe me, what these people can do will quite simply make your head spin. Take a ride with me down memory lane with veteran Hollywood actress Mary Lou Henner.
July 22nd of 1978. Here we go again. My first apartment that I moved into was 100 South Doheny, right down this street.
So driving along, all these different things, just
different little things. Yeah, for sure.
Mary Lou is no stranger to the limelight.
Let's have another warm baby welcome for Mary Lou Henner.
In the 1970s, she starred in the sitcom Taxi.
See, I'd really like to have one person there that I don't care about impressing.
But among her family and friends, Mary Lou Henner has always been famous for remembering everything.
Hey, Mom, what day was Valentine's Day in '79?
It was a Wednesday.
And you're right. I've never explained how you do that.
I don't do it. I just see it.
And you can remember your whole life?
Yes, I can remember my whole life. And some things come up like right away. And then some other things kind of come up a little more slowly, but eventually everything comes up.
I thought I'd see just how far back Mary Lou's memory goes.
Well, then by all means, just come to my party.
Picking at random an episode of Taxi filmed more than 30 years ago.
Thank you very much.
I had a look at the Taxi episode from 1978, Come As You Aren't. Do you remember
that
it?
was the 4th episode that we shot, and I had the blue dress on.
Alex?
See, that was going to be my first question to you.
What
Do you
dress?
remember what colour dress you wore to the party?
Yes. And,
So
so
you-
and I remember Tony's line, how come we can't go to the party too?
How come we can't go to the party too?
You know, it's like things come back. A line to Alex, you're maybe my best friend.
You're maybe my best friend.
And he turns around. You know, it's like the episode will come back to me. And I remember
Mary Lou is one of just 10 people in the world who've been tested and proved to have superior autobiographical memory.
October 1st, 8th.
Total recall of every day of their lives.
Extremely impressive.
Delta Airline Flight 191 crashes near Dallas, Texas.
Oh, I know exactly when that happened because it was August the 2nd of 1985. It was a Friday.
Such a gift has never been documented before. And scientists like Professor James McGaw are excited about where it may lead.
One of them said it's like a Google search, that you put it in and it just sort of, and there it is. And it's the year, and it's the month, and it's the day, and it sort of narrows in, and it goes bang, and they've got it. And this all happens very quickly. It just, there you have it.
That's how they explain to you how they do it.
Yeah, it's not a scientific explanation.
I understood it though.
It really is like selected scenes on a DVD.
So how does it work? If I throw you a random date, say the 8th of September 1985.
Okay, so I know 8th of September 1985 was a Sunday. It's like 85 all of a sudden kind of lines itself up, and it gets completely organized sort of in a timeline way, and I see the whole calendar sort of fall into place.
It's an extraordinary skill, and one that Mary Lou is thrilled to have. For others, though, like Jill Price, who was the first person to be diagnosed with this remarkable condition, it's a burden. Is it driving you crazy on the inside?
Yeah, sometimes it does. Yeah. I mean, I really just want to be screaming at the top of my lungs most of the time, and I can't do that. So I have to keep everything in check.
When did you realize you had this ability?
About 5 weeks after I turned 14, and I don't really know why on this day exactly, February 5th, 1980. But from that day until now, it's every day. And so, you know, you pull a date out, boom, it's like I'm right there.
Every moment of every day?
Every day, yeah.
Don't believe it? Well, let's do a test.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
The Challenger disaster.
Tuesday, January 28th, 1986. And the Super Bowl was the Sunday before.
For a touchdown!
John Lennon's assassination.
That was December 8th, 1980.
Do you remember what day of the week it was?
Monday. I was in 10th grade.
It blows my mind that you can remember that.
That crash killed 274 people.
The Chicago plane crash.
The one in May 25th, 1979?
That is the one.
Yeah, I was in the 8th grade. I had just come back that week from having the chicken pox.
Remembering historical events is one thing, but this goes a whole lot further.
Well, May 8th, my grandmother had...
Imagine having instant recall of what you ate for breakfast exactly 20 years ago today. What if I flip it around? I don't give you an event, but a date. The 28th of February, 97.
That was a Friday, and I was leaving that day to go up to San Francisco, but we sort of got sidetracked by a bank robbery in North Hollywood.
She's right.
for an hour, North Hollywood was a war zone.
Starting like on that Friday, the 15th, I'd gone to a football game.
And so begins an outpouring of memories plucked from 3 decades ago as if they were yesterday.
I will be crossing decades in time, and
So you've got all these little clouds of information surrounding you.
Yeah, that's what's in my head. It's just all this stuff.
For years, all this stuff, as Jill calls it, was driving her mad. In desperation, she contacted one of the world's foremost experts on memory, James McGaw. He thought it was a hoax.
So I got out a very large book that was published at the time of the millennium, which has a day-by-day report of what happened in the past century. And I just randomly opened the pages and said what happened on this day. And I was astounded by it because she could just tell me without even taking a deep breath. Okay, now we're going to do some.
By the end of the day, Dr. McGaw realised he was dealing with something completely unknown to science.
It's extraordinary. It's the ability of an individual to remember in detail what happened to them on any day of their life after the age roughly of 10 or 12, and also to remember all of the major public events that occurred on any given day.
That description struck a chord with another young woman who thought it sounded just like her too.
I wrote them a letter and I said, my name is Louise Owen. I'm a 36-year-old violinist living in New York City, and I have total recall of every day of my life since 1985.
The Berlin Wall falls on what day?
November 9th, 1989, which was a Thursday.
Dr. McGaw and his colleagues put Louise through hours of exhaustive tests.
Let's move back in time now to 1990. It rained on several days in January and February. Can you name the dates on which it rained?
And sure enough, she passed with flying colours.
It was slightly rainy and cloudy on January 14th, 15th.
Their memory is very much like your and my memory of yesterday.
So no tricks?
There's no tricks. And they just say, it just happens, just like that.
Louise, if I throw a year at you, say 1991, what happens to your brain?
1991. I immediately am thinking about, that was the year that I left LA and I moved to Boston.
Do you remember when the Oscars were that year?
The Oscars, I did not watch the Oscars that year. I think it was Monday, March 25th in 1991.
That is not bad for someone who didn't even watch. You're just showing off now.
Yeah.
And it's not even really fair to ask. Best actor and actress?
Kathy Bates won for Misery.
Kathy Bates in Misery.
And Jeremy Irons for Reversal of Fortune.
Jeremy Irons. Did you feel like a bit of a freak show is not the right word?
Oh, I think freak show is accurate. It's sort of a walking party trick,
Louise Owen can't explain her gift, but says her memory is a bit like a muscle she likes to exercise.
I'll think, okay, today is May 27th. What happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago on this day? And I'll scroll back as far as I can go.
So it jumps into your head very quickly. Can you get rid of it just as quickly?
Sometimes I feel like with all of these dates and all of these memories, it's almost like I'm in charge of about 9,000 rambunctious little children, that each one represents a different date, a different memory, and they're all vying for my attention all the time. It's like, pick me, pay attention to me, but I, have to keep everybody under control here.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun.
This is where the saliva goes.
Dr. McGaw and his colleagues are getting closer to understanding this extraordinary ability.
Things are very color coordinated here.
They notice that the 10 confirmed cases are all highly organised, some to the point of obsessive-compulsive disorder, others, like Mary Lou Henner, who just have very neat wardrobes.
I love organization. I like my shoes a certain way, right foot going this way, left foot going that way, so you can always see the toe and the heel on every pair.
This is my notebook from senior year in high school.
All of the subjects who have this strong autobiographical memory have some tendency to do some things in excess.
So you've kept a journal for how long?
Since the last week of 1976. It just swirls in my head until it's written down.
Look how tiny your writing is. Can you even read it?
Yeah.
You all right there?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Now the scientists are doing MRIs, brain scans, on their volunteer subjects, and they've discovered something astonishing. In each subject, one part of the brain, called the caudate nucleus, is enormous, up to 7 times bigger than normal.
Find anything good?
These people may help unlock some of the mysteries we still don't understand about the human brain. Is this potentially a cure for Alzheimer's or dementia?
This information that we provide may well turn out to be useful for understanding all kinds of disorders of memory, not just Alzheimer's disease, but brain damage from head injury and from encephalitis and all kinds of things.
For those who live with it every day, total recall is a mixed blessing. What about the sad stuff?
That's the stuff that has given me like my emotional nightmare throughout my whole life. I can't just move forward. And that is detrimental to my daily life because it's hard to move forward.
It sounds crippling.
It is crippling in a way because I do believe if I were like everyone else, my whole life would have been very different.
Is this a memory you remember?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
For Mary Lou Hanna, it's been a good life, made even better because she can recall every single moment.
I feel so blessed to have it because I feel like I get to carry all my life lessons with me.
What about the bad memories, though? I mean, do you think back to relationship breakdowns and feel that heartbreak
Every woman asks
again?
that question. Every single woman. It's so funny. Women always say, what about that bad breakup? And men always say, oh my gosh, you must be impossible to be married to.
All right, there you go. That's the 60 Minutes Australia piece that I was talking about with regard to people who remember essentially every second of their life past a certain age. And like the doctor was talking about in the piece there, past the age of about 12 years old, Mary Lou Henner, and only about 9 other people that have been identified on Earth that have this particular, I don't know if I call it a skill because it seems like something that you could learn. But anyway, they've got certainly a particular type of neurology that allows them to have essentially total recall. Man, imagine that. It would be sort of a blessing and a curse. It would be great to remember anything that you wanted to, but also it seems like, there might be some things that you don't want to remember and you kind of can't help it. Interesting. Anyway, if you've got anything to say, we've got about 15 minutes left. You're listening to KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan. The program is Radio Orbit. I'll be back with you next Monday at the same time, about 11 o'clock. I'm not sure who's coming in at 2. We'll see who shows up here. I'm hoping somebody's going to come in and relieve me here at 2 o'clock. In the meantime, I will see what else we got here to say. I guess we should talk about some upcoming guests. I mentioned next week we have Andreas Antonopoulos. We'll talk about blockchain technology, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general, and all kinds of the implications and things that go along with that, okay? Also, in the next couple weeks, we'll have Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher from Arizona, I think she is. She's close to my friend Mallory, I think. Anyway, Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, again, just a remarkable person. The people who have worked with her for years, they call her Lady Einstein. She's an absolute genius, and we're going to talk about whatever the heck she wants to talk about. Also, Dr. Paul Laviolette. Dr. Paul was on the program years ago, and he has some very interesting books. He's an astrophysicist, and he writes about things like the Big Bang or alternative cosmology ideas that kind of butt up against theories like the Big Bang. But he also knows a lot about galactic core explosions and ice ages and a lot of things that are sort of interesting to me. Hopefully they'll be interesting to you as well. So Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, Dr. Paul Laviolette coming up in the next couple weeks. My friend Justin Robertson, who is a falconer and just a real cool guy. We're going to get him on the program sometime in the next couple months here. Things will get kind of interesting in December. I'm not sure how the schedule will work out, but we'll definitely have plenty of people and plenty of things to talk about. So keep your radio dial tuned in here to KOPN, certainly on Mondays, but any time of the week, if you're looking for something new and exciting, there's a lot of different stuff here on KOPN, and some of it you might like, some of it you might not, but there's a whole lot of different stuff. So if you like what you're hearing tonight, definitely come back and listen to Radio Orbit again, but you also might check the KOPN schedule in general and, see if there's anything else on there that you might like or that you think you might like. And if you like this show, share it with your friends. Tell other people about it. You can go to the website at mikehagan.com. You can send me a note. I'm always interested to hear from people and to know what you think about the program, and maybe if you have any ideas or if you have a guest that you think might be interested. I'm thinking I'm going to try to get a hold of that guy that Mary Lou Henner was just talking to, the doctor that did all those memory studies. Oh, man. I'm going to try to get that guy on the show. That would be great. So I just put him on my list just now. But anyway, if you have other stuff that you think that might be cool, I'd be glad to check it out. And if you have musicians that you'd like me to listen to, I'd be glad to check them out. And if you have artwork or poetry, you're welcome to send all that stuff to me. Just get a hold of me at mikehagan.com. And my email address is the same. It's mikehagan@mikehagan.com. So very easy to get a hold of me. And you can also get a hold of me down here at KOPN at the station, 915 East Broadway. That's the way it works, okay? We got about 9 minutes left of the program, and I'll see if there's anything else here. I've been bitching a lot lately about social media and about the conglomeration and what's the word? I guess just the complete monopoly that companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter have on those particular spaces. I don't even like to mention them by name, but because I'm going to read this story, I had to mention them by name. But normally I don't even like to mention them by name. I don't even want to give them any free advertising. But anyway, there's a product out now on the market that is called Purism. And I don't know a lot about it, but I read an interesting article the other day, and I'm going to read a little bit about it right here to you. All right. Major tech companies have received increased scrutiny in 2018, especially when it comes to how they're handling user data. Internet users are becoming turned off by how much Facebook and Google and others know about them, and Apple has taken the opportunity to remind everyone that they're more interested in selling hardware than tracking your online activity. Much like internet users don't like the idea of Google reading their emails, they also may not like the idea of banks and payment processors tracking all of their financial activities in this way. It's interesting to view Bitcoin as the free software version of money. Additionally, it's important to note how Bitcoin can stand to gain from growth in the greater free software movement. Now, the greater free software movement, part of it goes like this. Apple has been making a lot of noise over the past few years in terms of the level of privacy and security they're claiming to offer their users. However, as a closed source proprietary offering, users are unable to explicitly verify that Apple is doing as they say. Purism, on the other hand, offers the verifiable proof to back up their claims as a privacy-respecting hardware and software company through features such as open source software and hardware kill switches. Purism was originally founded in 2014 and operates as a social purpose corporation. The company was started on the back of a crowdfunding campaign for a powerful Linux-based laptop with a focus on the values of free software movement, and now they're developing a smartphone with the same philosophy in mind as the laptop. So anyway, there's at least one organization out here that is actually making hardware that's going to be open source and like the guy who was talking about the voting machines earlier, you got to be able to look at the source code if you want to know what's really going on and how that data is being used and where it's being stored, who it's being sent to, etc. All right, so I'm always interested in alternatives. I love the idea of social media. I just don't like the idea of it being used to manipulate public opinion and to censor free speech. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say tonight, folks. That's a good way to wrap it up, I guess. We've got about 5.5 minutes, and my 2 o'clock replacement has not shown up yet, so I'll probably just put on some music, and hopefully we'll get somebody up here to finish the night out for you. If not, that's the way it goes, and we'll see y'all in a week. Actually, I won't see you, but you can hear my voice again in a week. 11 o'clock on Monday, Radio Orbit next week. My guest will be Andreas Antonopoulos. We'll talk about blockchain technology, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency in general. All right. Once again, KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM. This has been Radio Orbit. And I'm going to play one more here from the Rum Drum Ramblers. This one is called Behind the Wheel. Once again, you can find information about this fantastic music you've heard tonight on the web. Just look for the Rum Drum Ramblers. You can also find them on Bandcamp, Facebook, of course, which I hate to say. But anyway, go check them out and give them a listen, all right? Once again, the Rum Drum Ramblers on KOPN's Radio Orbit. It's Mike. Be cool. Take care of yourselves. Talk to you next week.
Get behind the wheel of your carburetor. Put that pedal to the floor and see how fast you might move. Open up your piston. We got things to do. Go down the window. Let the wind in your hair. A little cigarette. You'll get out of having something to say. And the word. I sucked it down my lungs. Pass the top away. Yeah, she. You always got something to say. What you wanna be doing with your windy day? And she, she got a lot of words. Like I never heard. I like your peaches. I like the whole damn thing. I know it pays to over yonder where we might go to drink. That's where I take my women. That's where I go to think. Get behind the wheel of your carburetor with the pedal to the floor, man. Let's see how fast you might. Open up your business and you crank Jeff too. Open up your business and you crank Jeff too. I said now open up your business and you crank Jeff too.